Most people think they understand the Chris Watts case. A family man, a sudden confession, case closed. But there are details, small, quiet moments that tell the real story. And once you notice them, everything feels different. In the summer of 2018, Chris Watts appeared to be the definition of ordinary. He lived in Frederick, Colorado, worked in the oil and gas industry, and was known as polite, calm, and soft-spoken. Friends described him as helpful. Neighbors said he was quiet. Online, his wife, Shannon Watts, shared their life, openly videos, smiles, family moments. From the outside, everything looked stable. And that's the first detail people forget. There were no obvious warning signs, no public outbursts, no criminal history, no reputation for violence. He was the guy next door, the devoted husband, the quiet father. Which is exactly why what happened next shocked the entire country. On August 13, 2018, Shannon and the couple's 2 daughters were reported missing. Chris spoke to police and the media almost immediately. He stood on his front porch, arms crossed, calm, asking for their return. But investigators noticed things that viewers didn't at first. He almost never used his wife's name. He referred to his daughters in the past tense. He showed concern, but not real urgency. And then there was the house. Nothing appeared disturbed. There were no signs of a struggle. Personal items like Shannon's phone and wallet were still there. The scene just didn't match the story of a family that vanished. That disconnect between what was being said and what was being seen became impossible to ignore. One of the most overlooked details wasn't what Chris said, it was how he moved. During those early interviews, investigators later noted his minimal emotional variation. There was nervous laughter at inappropriate moments. He had a strange focus on himself rather than on where his family might be. Body language experts would later say this wasn't the behavior of a panicked husband, it was a performance. Chris wasn't reacting to events. He was reacting to how he believed a grieving husband should look. It was a subtle but chilling tell that something was deeply wrong. Many people reduce this case to one simple explanation: the affair. Chris was involved in a relationship with a coworker, but investigators learned it wasn't just about wanting a new life. It was about his profound conflict avoidance. Chris Watts didn't confront problems. He didn't argue. He didn't leave. Instead, he just withdrew. Friends later said he struggled with asserting himself and was terrified of being seen as the bad guy. And that leads to one of the most disturbing truths of the case. His actions were undriven by rage. They were driven by a desperate need for control, disguised as passivity. Chris eventually confessed, but not all at once. His story changed. Details shifted. His versions of events evolved with each interview. Investigators later said his initial confession appeared designed to minimize his responsibility, not to fully explain what happened. Even after his conviction, further interviews from prison revealed new, horrifying details, raising questions about how much he was still holding back. The case may be legally closed, but psychologically, the full picture remains hauntingly incomplete. The Chris Watts case isn't just about betrayal. It's about how normalcy can hide extreme danger, how silence can be mistaken for stability, and how avoidance left unchecked can become utterly destructive. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't about monsters that look like monsters. They're about people who blend in perfectly until they don't. Thanks for watching.